Hello, my friends, and thank you for joining me on the Golden Hour Theory. My name is Kirsty, and I'm so excited that you landed here in this space. I wanted to start off my very first episode with my current and most prominent life change, which was breaking free of the corporate world to follow my passion and go all in on my business. It's been almost 3 years since I started my third and current business, which I scaled into a six-figure business, all by myself, all while working full time. No wealthy family inheritance, no private funding or loans, no employees. In this episode, I will take you through my entire journey, no fluff, just full stop reality of what it took to start, build, and grow my business. I won't be covering business strategy per se. That's definitely for another episode on another day, but I'll more so uncover the internal battle, my external reality, and how I finally felt safe enough to jump and follow my dream, as well as a tiny bit of story time so you can get to know me better since this is my first episode and you can understand where I come from. I'm so excited to share this episode with you. My intention is that it serves either as a mirror to those who are looking to leave the mundane 9 to 5 schedule and follow what lights them up, or as inspiration for those looking to get unstuck and just uncover the steps to realigning with their purpose. And if you're none of the above and you're just here listening for fun, I'm so excited for you to get to know me better. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I intend that you also find some sort of nugget in this episode that you can take with you throughout your week. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Golden Hour Theory. I'm Kirsty, and this is your space for grounded, best friend style conversations about wellness, self radiance, and creating rhythms of success that actually fit your real life. Picture us sitting down together, the warmth of the sun on our skin, lattes in hand, having a gentle chat with honest reflections and thoughtful shifts that feel safe, real, and attainable. Because your golden hour isn't just a moment in time. It's a way of seeing, a way of choosing, and a way of living. It's something that can only start from within, and I can't wait to share in this journey with you. Before we dive into the juice of this episode, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about me and where I come from and where I grew up, and sort of just my journey and how I kind of landed to where I am today. So I come from an average middle class family. I grew up on the East Coast. My father was in the military, so we hopped around from place to place. And from a very young age, I always had this desire to create beautiful things around me. I remember when I was younger, I would take my clothing and I'd snip it up and resew it back together or reconstruct it or add an extra piece of decorative stitching to the hem or just do something to make it a little bit different, a little bit more beautiful in my eyes than kind of just your standard run of the mill, off the rack sort of thing. I did this a lot with clothes. I did it with as many things in my room as I could. I just always wanted to make everything more pretty. And I think for me, looking back on it, it was probably a little mix of A, just my creativity, but B, we also grew up in an area that was surrounded by wealthy people. And I always wondered why we didn't have that life. And I love my parents so much. So I would never go back and redo my life. But I always had this desire to have those things that my wealthy friends had, the clothes that they had, the home that they had. I always thought how lucky they must be to grow up in these places. And so I always tried to make myself feel, I guess, wealthy inside. So the way that I did that as a young girl was to just create beautiful things around me. And also from a young age, I had this desire to be an entrepreneur. I don't know why. I can't explain like where it came from. I just remember watching shows like Project Runway and I wanted to own my own fashion line or own my own jewelry line or own my own something. I always had that drive to just do my own thing. But as many of you millennials might resonate with, our parents taught us that the key to living a wealthy and successful life was to go to college, go to grad school, get a really good education, get a degree, and work for a big, large corporate company. That was the way to make a lot of money and be like these big, wealthy people with these nice, fancy cars and beautiful homes. So, like the good millennial that I was, I listened to that advice. I went to college. I flew across the country to California to go to college. I wanted to get away from the East Coast cold. I am such a lizard. I love being in the sun. I love the warmth. And I started making jewelry on the side. So I started selling that as my very, very first business. And I would sell that on the side just for a little bit of extra cash while I was in college. So I went to college in California and then eventually grad school as well. And I did the entire thing. I got the internship, I got the corporate job. When I went into the corporate world, I wanted to dive all in. I was like, this is me. I'm a corporate girly. I'm going to turn into a CMO or a CEO. Like I was full in on the corporate life. And I still love my experience in the corporate world. I think everybody that has a corporate job has a really, really good thing. So this episode is not to go against the corporate world. And I really believe that it taught me so many things that I feel like I have a leg up when I started my what's now my current business. But to give a little background, I worked in corporate marketing. I loved it a lot. It was creative, it was stable, but I never felt exactly fulfilled in any position. And so for me, I thought, well, maybe it's the company. So I spent years jumping from company to company to company. I started in the beauty industry, then I jumped into the medical industry, which was a time. I jumped into apparel. I went from the corporate side to the agency side. I tried it all, and nothing quite really landed for me. I kept feeling like this is not it. Like I can't do this forever. It just wasn't fulfilling for me, and I wanted something bigger. And so while I was still in the corporate world, I actually started my second business, which was a plant based supplement company. I started it with my husband, Ryan. And it was so much fun formulating. We made a bunch of sales, which was so crazy. It was such a fun company. And then COVID hit and kind of took a hit on our business a bit. And we sort of started feeling a little disconnected from the business. Things were uncertain and we were dumping a lot of marketing money into the business. And we just eventually agreed, let's close it. It's not fulfilling us in the way that we thought it might. It's becoming a lot more expensive than we thought it was going to be, etc. And again, that's a story for another day that I can definitely dive into. But all of these things happened. We folded the business and I was still in corporate, sitting on Zoom calls all day long, working from home. And I realized I really loved working from home. I loved just being able to be in the world and not trapped in an office. And while I was spending all of that time at home on Zoom, but technically out in the world, quote unquote, I really started to sort of reassess my situation and start to think about what is it that I actually want. I know I don't want to sit in an office forever. So is there something that I can do where I can actually be out in the world? As I mentioned, it was COVID time, but about a year before, in 2019, my whole entire world was completely flipped upside down by quite possibly the worst thing that has ever happened to me thus far. I lost my mother in early 2019, and it took a huge toll on me. I lost her suddenly, so it wasn't like she was sick or any of that. It came out of nowhere. She was young, she was healthy, and it really started to put things into perspective for me, especially when COVID happened and I was just reevaluating everything that was going on in my life and what I was doing and what I was working towards and my goals and what was really important to me. I started seeing the world a bit differently. I started seeing my life a bit differently. I started seeing other people a bit differently. I just feel like it made this huge shift in me. And I started going really, really internal and uncovering what the meaning of things were and what the purpose of things were. And I felt in a little way that it was unfair that she was taken so soon because she had so much left to give, and it sort of lit a fire under me, especially when I was unhappy in the corporate world. And I thought to myself, you know what? Life is short, so I'm going to do something completely different, something that I didn't get my degree in. And so I felt the best way to do this was to completely change my career. I got my degree in marketing and my master's in business. And I decided to leave all that behind and go work for a residential interior design company, which was essentially a regional or local sales job. And I loved that so much. Again, during that time, it was during COVID. I was out in the world. I was doing my thing. I was not having to be stuck on Zoom all day. And the more that the years went by, I spent 5 years in this job. The more the years went by, I realized that I'm still not escaping what I think I'm escaping. And I heard this quote recently, and I love it so much. It says, "No matter where you go, there you are." And I think this rings true if I look back on my career, is like I was running and running and running, but the problem was not the job. The problem was me aligning with what I was doing. So in this position at the design company, I started to find that all of my old resentments from the corporate life, from just, I guess, working for someone else in general, just started to resurface and again started feeling burnt out, started feeling unfulfilled, started just questioning what I was even meant to do. So I kind of feel like I lost myself for a bit. And in my journey to figure out what the hell I'm meant to do, I started reflecting back. I loved the design aspect and the one to one client experience from my interior design job. I loved from the corporate world, the branding side, the creative, digital marketing, events. And I started to think about what are people always asking me for? What do people always come to me for? And a lot of my friends and a lot of my family members and just people in general love to ask my opinion on design things. Does this look good? How can I make it prettier? How can I make it more aesthetic? And it's kind of just, I think that's my gift. And so during this time, I also got engaged and I was planning my own wedding. I was dabbling in design concepts. I was taking what I learned from the interior design job and that whole world and just playing around with different elements that I could bring into my own wedding. And I was planning a micro wedding for just my family. So I really wanted to make it feel like an intimate dinner party as opposed to a big wedding production. So I was trying to find these really unique details that I could pull in. And while I was doing that, I was making all kinds of things. I was using my Cricut crafting machine, and I had a bunch of extra material that I had bought that I was just playing around with. So I decided, let me just throw these up online and see if I could just sell some of these off so that I could make extra cash for our wedding and not have all this extra material laying around. And during this time, I was still at this interior design job. So I was thinking like, this is little extra cash. Could be cool to make this into a little side hustle, nothing serious. And so I started making a bunch of sales and selling off all my materials to the point where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I need to buy more materials because people are ordering stuff." And I went through all of my spare materials that I was just trying to sell off for extra cash. And I started kind of making it into like a thing. More people started coming, more and more people started saying, "Hey, I love your work. Can you also make this? Can you also make that?" And so I just wasn't saying no. And then I'd figure it out. And I started to see like maybe this is what's going to lead me to my sole purpose? Maybe is this my business, my sole purpose, or is this going to lead me into something that will offer people even more of myself and be able to be an avenue where I could give more of my talent to people?
So, super quick pause because I'm sure you're wondering what the hell my business is if you don't already know. I own a business called Lux and Linen, and it is in the event and wedding industry. I specialize in bespoke signage crafted from materials inspired by the interior design industry. So, for example, marble and stone, wood, acrylic, that kind of thing. And I also just started offering this year design services. So I'll be offering services in terms of providing direction for creative decor and details for your events, everything from not just the signage, but all of the vibe and mood that goes into planning a really, really impactful event beyond kind of like your just kitschy decor. And then the other things that I offer with my business are also full size signage installations. So the big seating chart walls in addition to smaller signage, as I mentioned, made out of the beautiful materials for place cards, table numbers, bar signs, any sort of signage that you will see at an event.
So I started to lean into this a lot more. I would work on this business after hours. So I would try to pack orders in the evenings after work, and I would do it on the weekends if in my off time if I could. I would wake up super early in the morning, and it started getting busier and busier and busier. And thought, okay, I want to see what happens if I make this into a full-fledged business because I had started 2 businesses before. This was not foreign to me. So I'm like, let me just lean in and see what can happen. So I started to make a plan that this is going to be my avenue to leaving the corporate world slash working for someone else. This is going to be it. This is my door out. So I'm going to start making a plan to leave. But where do I start? Because there's no way that I'm going to jump and just be able to support myself with something that is right now it's just a side hustle. So I started listening to what feels like hundreds of podcast episodes. I mean, it's probably over hundreds at this point. I've listened to several audiobooks on building wealth, on building businesses. I started researching different entrepreneurs, mainly focusing on ones who built their entire lives from the ground up that didn't have any input financially from others. And I started setting up my strategy to leave. I actually selected an exit date, which, spoiler alert, took me 2 years after my selected exit date to actually leave. And it was actually all fully internal for me, which I'll get into a little bit. I even wrote my resignation letter and I didn't submit it when that date came. The date that I chose, I believe, was about 6 months from the date that I said it. So it was well in advance. And August 8th came and went, and my resignation letter sat on my desktop, and I just could not bring myself to leave. My business was doing well. It was actually outperforming my paycheck in my full-time job, which I'm so incredibly thankful for. Shout out to all my clients in my current business. I look back on it and I don't even believe it for myself. So I'm so, so grateful that that was my reality. And somehow for me back then, it just wasn't enough. I had spent my entire life believing that working for someone else is the key to getting wealthy. And for a lot of people, it is. So I truly believe that because I saw it with other people. And at the time, my full time job, I was making a really good amount of money. I was making 6 figures. So it wasn't easy to say, okay, let me just drop that paycheck all of a sudden because I want to follow my dream. Like it just felt silly. It felt irresponsible. And I had kind of climbed the corporate ladder in marketing. I was a manager level position when I left. And when I was in the interior design job, I climbed the ladder and made it to a manager position. So it's not like I was in an entry level position and then started this business and had this like, was all of a sudden like making all this money with my business. And then it was just like, yeah, a no brainer. For me, it was kind of, it was my business was making more, but I was also making 6 figures and a good, healthy salary. So it was hard for me to justify to myself or I guess have faith and confidence in myself to just jump. And I was purely thinking about numbers at that point to the point where I was like, "You know what? I can do both. I can stay up late, I can wake up early, and I can have the success of my business, and I can have the success of my corporate design job." And many of you probably know how that went. I started, I feel like, whittling away as a human being. My husband, Ryan, at one point just told me, like, "This is not sustainable. You are not sleeping." And I was like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." And then I started realizing I was a shell of a person. I wasn't showing up for myself the way that I should have been. I wasn't prioritizing my sleep. I wasn't prioritizing my workouts the way I used to. I wasn't showing up for my friends in the way that I wanted to. I would take days and days, sometimes weeks to respond. And I started not showing up for just everything in my life. I realized that my personal life was kind of suffering because all of my energy was just being poured into my full time job and my business. So I took a step back. So my whole, I guess, journey of going internal, the same way I did when I lost my mom, was the same thing that I did with this. I started meditating. I started writing down what my dream life looked like. I started creating vision boards and just really more so like give me what I need to uncover my confidence to just jump. What is it? What is it that I'm doing that is so scary that I can't jump? Because the proof is right there for me. My business is performing. I'm very capable and how much more could I do in my business if I freed up my time during the day that I was working full time? And even on the weekends, when I had to work on the weekends, how much more time could I free up? Could I have my weekends back if I freed up all my time during the week and was able to focus on the business then? And then I could have normal weekends again and prioritize my relationship and my friends and all of that. So my whole journey was going into how do I clear myself of limiting beliefs that I believe for some reason I'm not capable, because consciously, I knew I was capable. I'd started businesses before. Anything that I had focused on, I had made successful. So why didn't I trust myself? And there's a story that I heard in one of these podcasts that I had been listening to, and it was a workshop. And in this workshop, the instructor had all of the people gather in a big room, and he set up various obstacles. He had them stand on one side of the room, and he set up obstacles like chairs, boxes, that kind of thing, all scattered throughout the room. And he said, "Okay, everybody stand on one side of the room, and what I want you to do is get to the other side. So your goal is to get to the other side of the room. That's it." So they were like, "Is there any catch? Like, do we need to do something specific? Like the floor is lava. What are we doing?" And he's like, "Your goal is to get to the other side." So all of them were just got to the other side. They went over the chairs, obstacles, boxes. They went around them. They all ended up on the other side. And he used that as a metaphor. He said, when you have a goal in your mind, it doesn't matter how you're going to get there. If you are so focused on the goal, you're going to get there. And no matter what life throws in your way or any obstacles come in your way, look how easily you just went around them. Your brain subconsciously knew just how to get around it because you trusted yourself. You trusted that you would get to the other side. I mean, that's your goal. Of course, I'm going to get to the other side. I don't care if there's a couch in my way. I'm going to get to the other side. I'm going to go over it. I'm going to go around it. And so I started thinking about that a lot. Is like, if I am so focused on my goal, just how I was when I moved across the country and somehow was able to afford a roof over my head and food. Then I wanted to have a corporate job. So I had a corporate job. Then I wanted to get out of corporate and I wanted to work in a completely different field. So I did that. I wanted to start all these businesses. I started them and I made sales with all of them. So I started to think it's not about what I'm doing, it's about me. And I really started to look inward. Where am I living beliefs? Where is there where can I prove to myself that these things that I think about myself or that I think about my business, how can I prove that those aren't true? So I did a lot of mental work for myself. But again, it took me 2 years from the exit date, by the way. Mind you, I had been in this design business, as I mentioned before, for 5 years. I had been in the corporate world for 6 to 8, 10 years. So it had taken me all this time. And I decided to give myself grace. Let me just keep building what I'm building. Let me just keep doing what I'm doing. And I'm not going to say that I just knew. I didn't jump when I felt safe. I didn't feel safe at all, actually. And I just kept pushing through the job. Every single day I went through into my full-time job and started working on my full-time job, I felt so much resentment. It felt worse and worse and worse every single day. But I kept telling myself, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing both simultaneously until I just want to go, until I'm just ready. And as I said, I wasn't ready, but I picked a date, July 7th, 7/7 of last year in 2025. And I said, that's going to be my date. I'm going to stick by it this time. I didn't stick by it 2 years ago. And there's no other option for me. I'm going to do my business. There was no other option. I'm smart enough that if I need a safety net, I can create my own. I have created a safety net for myself this entire time. I have not had any of my parents' help or family members' help or anything this entire time that ever since I left the East Coast to go to college. I've not had any help. So I was like, the universe is my safety net. And that's the biggest safety net that one could have. And I create that with the universe. We create that together. So 2 weeks before July 7th, I submitted that resignation letter that I had written 2 years prior, changed the date. And I decided to lean all into my business. And as soon as I relieved myself of the stress, as soon as I sent that resignation letter, I started to get all sorts of ideas and things come through about how I could expand and grow my business. And it was just that clarity of mind. I lifted that veil and I just focused on my goal and everything that I've launched or I've created or I've done in the past 7 months, and even in the past 3 years now since I've started my business, I've just listened to my intentions, my intuitions purely. And if I compare it to the other businesses that I started, I think the other businesses I was focused on financials, on marketing, on business strategy, because that's my background, right? I was so focused on the bottom line and the cost of the raw materials and the markups and this and that. And of course, any business that you start, even the one that I have now, I still have to focus on that. It's not completely all intuition based, but I'd say that this is the first business that I've kind of just floated and let the wind take me. I listen to my clients and what they want. I try things, I figure it out. I listen to all these downloads that I get internally during my meditations. I try to really, really focus on my mind work and try to hone my mind and listen and just create stillness for myself. And I think that was another thing for me is just as I was really, really leaning into my business, and it wasn't just like, oh, let me dip a toe in the water and see if this business will work. I leaned fully in as if I pretended like this is my full-time business, even though, as I said, I was just working on it super late at night, like 4 in the morning, I was working on it. But in my mind, I was like, this is me full time. I'm pretending it's daytime. This is me full time. I fully leaned into it and I allowed space for myself to just hear myself and think. So I'd sit in silence, I would meditate, and I can go down a whole other journey in another episode about my meditation journey because that was a whole other thing. It was so hard to find a method of meditation that actually worked for me. But I would do things like drive in the car in silence. I'd sit in the morning after waking up, just laying in bed in silence. I just tried to slow down because the reality of today's world is that we are always just going, going, going. Our family has our attention, our partner has our attention, our pets, our kids, our job, our this, our that. All of that is just so constant in our head from day to day to day. We're just trying to survive. But if you slow down, even if you just give yourself 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes while your water for your tea is boiling, while the water for your pasta is boiling. Just give yourself a few minutes just to breathe and let thoughts come to you and just hear your thoughts. And don't try to focus too hard on anything. Focus on what your dream would be, focus on what your goal would be, what's your dream life? What's the one thing that you would absolutely love to do? Focus on it so hard, and it's not going to matter how you get there. It didn't matter that those people in the room jumped over the couch or went around it. They all got there in different ways, but they all got there because they're also focused on the one goal of getting to the other side. So always give yourself time and space. Always practice continued learning. I always try to absorb as much information as possible from podcasts and audiobooks. I still do this. I do this every day. Even topics that you're like, I don't know if I'm super into this, just listen to it. You'll always get a nugget from somebody. That's what I've always learned. Always practice gratitude. Be so thankful for the things around you, even if you don't have the thing that you want yet. Be grateful for the thing that you have. Be grateful that you have clean water. Be grateful that you're able to eat dinner every single day, no matter what kind of food it is. They have a blanket and a bed. Just be grateful for everything that you have, and you'll slowly start to see things
Upgrade.
And for me, what I did is I truly believed that I was the person that I wanted to be. So when I started my current business, I believed even after the first sale, the fifth sale, that I was an entrepreneur. I told myself I'm a full time entrepreneur. And I started making decisions like her. I wanted to be the girl who had a business, who had a loving marriage and relationship, who had a home, who had a beautiful car. And I started embodying who that girl was. As an entrepreneur, what kind of decisions would she make? As a wife, what kind of decisions would she make? As a homeowner, what would she be doing? And I started to live like that. How would she feel in the mornings? How would her mornings look? I started to embody this persona, and I still do this to this day. And the reality is that now I own my own business. I've been running my business and supporting myself. I am a homeowner. I'm married. I recently upgraded my car. And I'm not saying these things just to brag about what I have, but to show that I didn't believe when as I mentioned before, listening to all these entrepreneurs and these people saying they manifested these things, but it's true. The more your mind focuses on it and becomes that person, the more you think you are who you think you are, that's the person you're going to become. And this is so potent because it could go the opposite way. But if you see yourself as this person that you want to be, you do the work subconsciously to clear any underlying dead roots that are holding you back, and you focus on the things that you want, you focus on the upgrades that you want, you will naturally get yourself there as long as you're doing the work to clear the dirt under the surface and focus on the life that you want to live. Without a doubt, if you have those doubts in your mind, you have to clear those. That's the dirt. The dirt are the doubts. The doubts are the dirt. Focus on how you're going to clear that. Focus on what the root of those issues are and clearing those out while you embody the person that you want to become. And it is literally inevitable that you will become that person. It's inevitable if you keep focusing on that. It's inevitable that those people got to the other side of the room. So, my key takeaway for you is to think about what you want. What is your absolute dream scenario? If nothing else mattered, current life situations aside, who is your dream person? What does he or she look like? What does their relationship look like? What does their home look like? What does their family look like? Who are they? Where are they living? What are they doing? And start focusing on that. Don't focus on exactly how you're going to get there. You don't need to focus on the logistics of things. You leave that to your intuition, to the universe, to God. You leave it to source or whoever you believe in. You leave that to yourself. You're going to get yourself there inevitably. If you keep focusing on it, you're going to seek out information on how to get there. You're going to start to embody that person and realize, oh, this is what I would do. This is what I'd do on a daily basis if I was a business owner. This is how my morning would look if I was a CEO. This is the type of conversations I would have if I was a CEO, or the people that I'd surround myself if I was XYZ. These are the places I would go if I was this person. Give yourself the space to receive these ideas. Embody this person, lean into them fully. Don't just dip your toe in. As I said, jump fully in, more than waist deep. Lean in, see what sticks. If you get an idea that comes up, lean into it. If it doesn't work, it's probably going to lead you to the next thing. The more you focus on your logical why, the more illogical things will pop up and lead you exactly where you want to be. You just need to blindly trust in yourself, blindly have that confidence in yourself. Know that's whatever is popping into your head as an idea is meant to be there, and you will always get to your desired why. So, to wrap this all up, I think success is inevitable when you have the courage of conviction, a deeply rooted, inspired action. And I think the number one thing that I learned throughout this is that when you think too logically or too critically of the exact formula to do what you want to do, it usually won't work. Just trust that you inherently will know the path to get there. Just like those people that crossed the room and went around the chairs, you will quote unquote blindly and inherently know how to get there no matter what's in your way. Okay. I hope this was helpful. as a general episode to whomever is out there wanting more for their life or whoever is out there feeling stuck in their corporate 9 to 5 or even their business and starting their business. I will have so many more episodes coming to talk about the energetics of how I grew my business, how I felt safe and confident within myself without looking for external validation. So, all of that is to come. But thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it was a good introductory into who I am, where I come from, and hopefully you found some sort of nugget within all of this that you're going to take with you and go on with your day. So, that is all I have for you. I will see you in the next one, and I can't wait to chit chat again.